I'll just share with you one of the insights. There's two insights that I've learned in terms of dealing with grief. And thankfully, I'm very blessed that I have both my parents alive. They should be well. I
Nice.
can't say that I have faced tragedy in my life, and that on a personal level, I've been very, very careful when dealing with other people's tragedies to always remind myself that this is not me going through, this is them. I'm here to support them. Even though you can be very, very close to it and very in its face, it's their journey. You don't have a right to appropriate that. It's not yours. You're there to support. And two things that I've learned. And the first one is the answer, in my opinion, to this question as to why people are lining up to put on tefillin. Why are people looking for mitzvahs? Why do people gravitate to that in the times of tragedy? And the cynical answer is, or the scientific observation would be, well, they need some sort of support and they hope that this will give them something. I don't believe that. We all have a godly core. We call it a neshama. The reason that we're not walking around as God consciousness all the time is because that neshama is enclosed in a body. And the body has body needs, body desires, body interests. And the material reality within which we are steeped creates a sort of shell and a husk around the godly core. And we start attaching ourselves. Think about it. At the end of the day, the relationship that you have, for example, with food, and I mean, that's to Josh's benefit. We have a very deep relationship. Although food is essentially a fuel, it's not. It's a whole experience, and we need it to be presented in a certain way, and we need to know that it comes from a certain place, and we need it to look in a certain manner, and we want to understand and feel some sort of narrative along with this meal. And that is true with all our material things. Really, they're there to serve us, but we end up serving it by attaching this entirely big picture around it. We tie our identity integrated with the material realities around us. And that feeds a certain sense of security and a sense of safety until we go through a tragedy. Please God, nobody has to go through a tragedy. We go through a loss. Please God, nobody should go through a loss. But when we experience that type of shedding of the outer shell, when we are hurt deeply, we suddenly realize that all those identities don't feed the experience that we're now experiencing. They don't feed it. It doesn't help it. Because we're touching something very deep within us. Because with that experience, we are touching our soul. And when you touch your soul, you instinctively know that you can't feed it even delightful das gelato. It ain't going to feed the need of the soul. So as long as we live with a material sort of presentation, the house that we live in, the schools that we send our children to, the comforts that we get used to, the familiarities that we have built up around us, it works. But then one day it doesn't. One day we touch our soul because all that is laid bare. And when you touch your neshama and your God conscious, it simply isn't enough. People are not lining up to put on tefillin with some sort of transactional hope for protection. Nonsense. If anything, they're actually putting themselves at risk. They're probably identifying with something that has a target on its back. What they're doing is answering the call of a neshama. They are feeling their neshama. When we feel our neshama, you simply can't layer it over with another material goodie. Doesn't work. And I've said this before, and I think I've said this in the shir maybe as well, how I've learned from people that have gone through incredible deprivation, that they miss it in a certain sense because they touched something in themselves that was so pure, that was so unadorned with superficiality, that it was the most incredible thing to touch that. The pain that they had to go through to touch it was unbearable. Nobody asks for that. Nobody will go back there. But they know they touched something inside of them that was simply in the most purest sense of their inner self. And when we go through tragedy, we naturally, all these defenses we built, they disappear. And that's when we start a yearning for something that is deeper. Now we can learn from that, and we should learn from that. That if I automatically went to my drawer and put on my tefillin, or put on a yarmulke, or made a bracha, or wanted to go to shul, or wanted to touch, like, that's because there is some part of me that has not been fed by all this reality that I've constructed around me. And I have to learn from that for the times when I am safe and I'm well and I'm not feeling the pain intensely. That is true to me. That informs my reality. It's not an aberration. It's not a detour. It's who I really am. I touched it. Don't let go of it. You know, often when I was in Santon, and Darren's mates, Darren, I don't think ever came to me at that time, but a lot of his mates came to talk about their relationships, because people were going through relationships, and it comes with breakups and heartaches and questions and doubts and this and that. There was a common theme in what I dealt with. And, one of the things that the guys couldn't handle is that they were getting hurt by a comment that their girlfriend made, or by ultimatums, or by whatever. They were getting hurt. And they didn't like the feeling of being hurt, because they've got these perfect personas. They've got jobs driving on Z3s. Okay, they're geared to the hilt, but in Joburg, hey, what the heck? And to feel hurt, it doesn't suit them. And what I would often say to them, and I found it resonated, is that if you're feeling hurt, it's because something's important to you. Feeling hurt is a symptom of something. The fact that you're hurt means this relationship is important. Don't run away from the feeling of hurt. Lean into it. Understand what it's telling you. It's something it's telling you that you need to actually embrace. This important relationship is important. It might not suit you at the moment because you like, jolling and going out with your mates on Saturday nights, and you don't like the responsibilities that comes with it. Never mind that you're 42, but that's a failure to launch and all that. But the point is, yes, you want to have a good life, but there's something important to you. That's why it's hurting you. So lean into it and learn from that feeling. Don't escape that feeling. I say the same thing here in a positive sense. When you see the Jewish community leaning into a relationship with Hashem, it is not a crutch. The neshama is laid bare in difficult times. It's expressing itself. It's saying, I need something, and everything else you've given me doesn't satisfy this. So let's go. So let's learn from that and make sure that we can adopt habits. That's the first lesson. I want to go to one more lesson.
Wow. Can I just say,
I wonder if there's any questions or comments on that.
Thousands, Rabbi. That was
Danny, we would expect no less
an
from you.
important message. And I think if we're going to snip this up for the boys, that little 5-minute section is the highlight. That's a good snip.
Good. No, I find it. I mean, it's really born from experience of watching how people deal with loss and pain, and it's true. We have a neshama, and when it speaks, it's hard to ignore it. I'll tell you one other lesson, and this is connected to the month of Tevis. We're going this Shabbos, and Sunday is Rosh Chodesh Tevet, the beginning of the new month, and this month in the northern hemisphere is very much a winter month. We find a reference to this month. I'm not an expert on the entire written law, written Torah, the prophets and writings. But one place that I do know that this month is mentioned is in the Megillah, in the story of Purim. Because remember, the months of the year are not mentioned in the Bible. They come essentially from Babylonia, from Iraq, when the Jews were in Babylon after the destruction of the first temple. And that's when we start seeing the names in scripture of months. And the month that we're coming up to is mentioned in the book of Esther, in the story of Purim, because Esther is kidnapped from her home in Shushan in Persia, in Iran. She's taken to the special place where she is going to be presented to the king. And we understand that she wasn't being presented to the king for tea. And she wasn't going to pirouette for the king, okay? The king had a voracious sexual appetite. And he was basically test driving everything that existed before he decided who to marry, okay? So we're adults and we understand the context. And eventually, Esther is summoned to the king in the month of Tevis. And that's when she meets the king. And that's when the king decides that she is the future queen. And then the healing and the salvation of Purim actually unfolds. So Esther is invited to the king in the month of Tevis. Why is it important to tell us that it's in the month of Tevis? So the Gemara says This is a month when the body craves the comfort of another body. So in the Northern Hemisphere, that makes sense on a physical sense. It's cold. You want to be bundled up for warmth. You need warmth. So human beings provide a great source of warmth and comfort in that sense. What does it mean on a spiritual level? I'll tell you what it means on an emotional level. And this is the other thing that I've observed in grief, watching grief, being close to it. And that is the incredible, incredible need to physically embrace another. It's an incredible thing. It's completely subconscious. It is the number one thing that people need is a hug. It's unbelievable. And if you've been through loss, you know exactly what I mean.
It's also scientifically proven. They've shown like dopamine and different chemical releases in the body when there's a hug and a human connection.
Amazing.
And when
And
a mother
yet
has
we
a
don't look for it every
baby,
day.
the first thing they do is touch, skin to skin contact. So it's an absolute
100%.
primal need.
100%. Fascinating. And here's the thing: we don't look for it regularly. It's not like you're deeply embracing everybody at every moment, walking around and going, "Oh, I love you, it's so good to see you. I want to hold on to you forever." No, you don't do that. Because why? Because I believe that that impulse is an impulse of the soul as well. It's an inner impulse which says, I can't exist alone. Now, that's not the persona that we create. The persona that we create is that we are self-sufficient, completely independent, and we have it in hand. I mean, if I were to go onto your Facebook pages, your Instagram feeds, and so on, I would see curated realities of perfection. I wouldn't see the pain, the fear, the regret, the uncertainty that you're the we don't depict that because we don't have that, right? We're men. We're men.
Some people pay a therapist, but not many people could even articulate it, and they just hold it in, and it layers on layers on layers. Yeah.
Because the body, the materialism is about, you have to remember something. In the world of materialism, the more that I have, the better I am, the stronger I am, the bigger my portfolio, the bigger my house, the bigger my car. The quantity of things represents a self-sufficiency and success. But that's a zero-sum game, because if I want more, it means somebody else is going to get less. And we know that because when somebody else gets more, we feel like we have less. Because they have more, that means we have less. Somewhere in the equation, we have less. We're nervous.
Even though we live in a world of abundance? You still
unfortunately, the human reaction is the human reaction. I just think that again, a material truth is I have to have more, even if it's at the expense of somebody else. And we see that with tzedakah. I can't give tzedakah because it means I have less when they're getting more. That is it's hard. It's hard to do. Even when we do it, it's hard because of that reality. But when you touch the soul, you're nothing without another. The instinct is to embrace, to hug, to hold on, to say, I need you. And that is again, it's a soul quality that comes out where we're able to admit and acknowledge we're not sufficient. We're not enough on our own. We need somebody else. And just to finalize this point with the lighting of the candles, I don't know if you lit your candle already tonight.